Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe Show. Let's jump into it. Every crime, no matter how trivial, owes its roots to temptation's murderous stab. The wounds left by this act is never more devastating than when used as a prelude to betrayal. It bears the marks of the unholy, the wretched, and the bane of all things good and righteous in the universe. God help me. The temptation that exudes betrayal is the uncontested triumph of evil. Emperor Hadrian, 23-216 AD, addressed to the Empire after the Battle of Vakatioth. I doubt that history will record how fiercely we fought for our freedom. There will be no chronicle detailing the courage of the Minmatar warriors, or the unity of our tribes during the rebellion. But historians will go to great lengths to make sure that other empires take credit for ensuring our survival, and that before we were anything else, we were slaves first. On that point, future generations will be certain. The Nefintar Paradigm. Unija Krur. Essence Region. Crux Constellation. The Rain System. Planet 9, Moon 4, Federal Intelligence Office Headquarters. The officers filed into the room quietly, taking their seats as the polarized conference room windows darkened. Bear took a moment to glance up from his datapad to take inventory of the attendees. 10 officers were present, each of them colonial or higher in rank. 8 were from Division Command, 2 of which held advisor posts that reported directly to the Senate Intelligence Committee. The last 2 were from the War Department. They look especially annoyed, he observed. I would be also if I was pulled from the Caldari war efforts for this. Everyone shared the same haggard, sleep-deprived appearance that warned of short tempers. Bear was the lowest-ranked officer in the room. The wrong answers in here would cause irreparable damage to his career. Bear's superior, Colonel Tilda Sertro, was sitting to his right, a formidable woman within the agency. She was calmly scanning her own datapad while waiting for everyone to arrive. As soon as the War Department representatives took their seats, she gestured without looking up. Bear understood her cue and inhaled deeply before speaking. She had been very clear about what he was allowed to say. Thank you for coming on such short notice, he said. Approximately 60 minutes ago, one of our scout frigates was shot down by Imperial Navy forces in the Hahil system. The vessel was unarmed and traveling through unrestricted territory, as stated in the Gallente Amar Free Trade Agreement of 23-210. The colonels advising the Senate Intelligence Committee leaned forward, but no one else reacted to the news. Bear continued his briefing. For the time being, we've listed the pilot's status as MIA. We have telemetry recordings of the attack, which crippled the ship but did not destroy it. The pilot was attempting to land the vessels on Damon's surface before we lost contact. No other crew or passengers were on board. The War Division's officers appeared disinterested in everything Bear was saying. One of them, Brigadier General Talon Falginru, actually stifled a yawn. In addition to the telemetry, we know that several Minmatar ships witnessed the event, although we still haven't been able to reach their government since the bombardment of Iana. The reason why we brought you all here is to... Oh, good, Talon interrupted. I was starting to wonder if you had a point. Bear felt the surface temperature of his face surge. Colonel Sertro shook her head just enough to be noticed, but kept her gaze locked on the datapad in front of her. The reason why we brought you all here, Bear repeated, was to seek consensus on a search and rescue effort for the pilot. Who was the pilot? Asked the other War Division officer, Major General Celis Bruce. Shit, Bear thought. Tilda was specific about not discussing this. The pilot was in the High Hills area investigating a possible lead into... That's not what I asked you, Silas growled. Who was the pilot? Bear threw Tilda a desperate look. She casually looked up from the desk and spoke in a steady tone. Answered the general's question, Lieutenant Colonel. Viola Antiones, sir. I knew it, Talon scoffed, rolling his eyes. Just a matter of time. I'm sorry, General? Bear asked, losing his temper. Exactly what was just a matter of time? Talon was about to unleash a verbal fury on Bear, but Silas waved him off. Lieutenant Colonel, do you know how many search and rescue missions are currently underway? No, sir. 26. All because of the war we happen to be in. I understand there are resource constraints, but Silas cut him off. There are no resource constraints when it comes to rescuing our downed pilots, Lieutenant Colonel. All of the Federation's assets are devoted to the war effort, but I will not pour rescue crews into harm's way to pick up junkies who get themselves into trouble either. The bottom fell out from Bear's stomach. Sir, I don't understand why your Talons produced a data pad and slid it across the desk. Picture's worth 1,000 words, Bear, he sneered, not to mention life in prison. The images were as nauseating as they were shocking. Camera footage capturing Viola taking receipts of the vial from a man whose face registered with the FIO's criminal database as a member of the Serpentis drug cartel. Interactions with known felons or their affiliate organizations carried penalties that were twice as harsh during war than in peacetime. The fact that she was also a federal agent meant that she could technically be charged with treason. There's a lot more where that came from, Talon said. That scumbag in the picture is going to get some leniency in exchange for his cooperation. Can't say the same will be the case for your heroine. She deserves some respect, sir, Bear said, trembling as he spoke. Her contributions to the agency are profound, and I won't stand for— Sit down, Bear, Silas ordered, and don't open your mouth again until you're asked. God damn it, Viola, Bear thought, sliding into his chair. I could have helped you. Why didn't you tell me? Silas scowled at the stunned faces around the table before addressing Bear again. Now, I have some good news for you, and a lot of bad news. The good news is that you somehow managed to not fuck up since we started our surveillance on you, which, in case you're wondering, began as soon as we learned about Viola's drug habit. Bear turned towards Tilda and stared with an expression that screamed, You knew about this? She turned to meet his stare with a bone-chilling coldness. The bad news, Silas continued, is that we now have sufficient grounds to label that woman's contributions around here as wholesale bullshit. And that, Lieutenant Colonel, means that your value to this agency is even less than hers. Silas leaned forward, pointing a finger as he continued to hammer away. For your information, that loud-mouthed junkie bitch was going to be arrested the next time she docked anywhere in Federation space. And then I was going to see to it personally that she was thrown in jail for the rest of her life. Now, I'm only going to say this once. There will be no search and rescue for that woman. The Amarians get a free pass with this one, because I really don't give a damn what a GAFTA has to say. She has absolutely no reason to be anywhere near Diamond, or anywhere else in Amarian space, period. Is that clear? Bear just blinked back at him, half stunned, half furious, and wholly incapable of speaking. I'll take that stupid look on your face as a yes. Now, does anyone else in here have anything important to say, or can we go back to fighting the Caldari? There's no answers from anyone. Meeting adjourned, Silas said, getting up from the table. Thanks for nothing, Lieutenant Colonel. The shaking in Viola's hands were getting worse, but she could not tell if it was because from the anger or the withdrawal. Akradon had said nothing to her. His eyes remained shut, even with the glaive collar pinching his neck, and the only words out of his mouth were Amarian prayers. Sweat was pouring down her back, her face and neck. A slight fever had flared up, just as Grius had predicted. She tore off the upper section of her flight suit in disgust, followed by the dermaprene exoskeleton underneath. A sleeveless base layer was all that remained to cover her chest and back. Grius approached with water and a headpiece. Drink this, he said, and put those on. The camera feed is ready. She took the device and fitted it over her face. A glass lens extended below the brow strap that covered one eye. The eye cam will project imagery directly into your retina, Grius said. You can adjust the size of the image using the control on the rim, plus how much of your cone of vision is obstructed. Don't tell me that you need one of these to see what's going on, she muttered. Our anatomy was genetically altered to accommodate cybernetic devices that enhance our senses, he answered. Future generations of Jovians will not need them. I have another iCam for your Marian friend. Do you want him to have one? Viola reached out and grabbed it from his hands. Definitely. Maybe I can use it to get this bastard to open up his eyes. We're going to split up into two teams, Vlad said quietly. Kruger, you take Velios and Makar and set up defense in the corridor. Keep the blast doors at your back and place charges every 15 meters from this point forward. Hold this position until I tell you to leave or you'll get us all killed. Got it? Yes, sir, Kruger replied. Thrumgar and Dramis, you come with me. We're going to follow the Jovians until they spot the guards. Do not make contact unless you have to defend yourself. Let's move. Roger, both soldiers answered. They started down the corridor, moving quickly without making a sound. Thrumgar's claw was leveled in front of him. Vlad and Dramis was advancing with their weapons held at eye level. The ground was paved and featured two sets of embedded mag rail tracks that ran down the center line of the entire length of the corridor, but the ceiling and walls were pure rock. We've advanced 300 meters into the complex, and have yet to see a single guard, Vlad thought, watching the Jovian's progress through his iCam. Every fiber of his nerves were screaming that something terrible was about to happen. Bear sat alone in his office, with the shades drawn and the lights turned off. The ashtray was smoldering with the putrid remains of an entire pack of cigarettes, the last of which was seconds away from burning itself out in his fingers. A torrent of thoughts raced through the beleaguered officer's mind, all of which were marked by despair and humiliation. Viola's dead or in deep trouble, he thought, taking the last puff, and there isn't a goddamn thing I can do about it. There was still enough lighting in the office to identify shapes. Bear reached out to his desk and found a picture frame that captured the day when he was promoted to lieutenant colonel. Tilda was pinning the new rank's insignia onto his uniform, while a general stood nearby at attention. Tilda. Bear slammed the frame onto the desk, leapt out of his chair, and started beating the picture with his fist. When the glass shattered, he swept everything from the desk onto the floor with a single motion, then grabbed the furniture's edge and heaved it onto its side. It fell to the floor with a thunderous crash, sending the two chairs sailing across the room. Breathing heavily and feeling somewhat better, Bear collapsed into his seat. Moments later, there was a sharp knock on his door. Sir, is everything all right in there? It was one of the MPs stationed in the concourse. Yeah, everything's great, Bear answered. Just doing a little cleaning. I have to let myself in, sir. Please move away from the door. Before he could tell him to wait, the door slid open and the lights were thrown on. Two MPs barged into his office, surveying the mess inside. Thanks for coming over, Bear said, gestured towards the overturned desk. Did you come here looking for any vials? The MP exchanged serious looks, and then took positions at either side of the door. Bear's glib demeanor changed when he recognized the two men who walked to his office next. Colonel Mark Beatrix and Liam Kali. They were advisors who reported to the Senate Intelligence Committee and were present at his briefing. Tilda Sertro was standing behind them. Lieutenant Colonel, Mark stated, wincing from the stench of cigarette smoke. Mind if we have a few words with you? Bear alternated glances between the two officers. Am I going to need legal counsel for this? Liam spoke up. We're not here to arrest you, and General Bruce has already said that you've done nothing wrong, but we need to talk to you about some things. Well then, have a seat, Bear answered. The two officers stepped over the shattered glass and debris, pulling the chairs in front of the overturned desk. When Tilda followed them into the office, both Liam and Mark looked over their shoulders. Colonel, please excuse us, Mark said. MPs, wait outside. We are not to be disturbed. Yes, sir, the MPs gestured with his hand for Tilda, who gave the two a dismissive look and slinked back outside. Bitch, Bear thought, still admiring her hourglass figure as the door closed. Before we begin, Mark started, there are two more people I need to conference in. Liam got off his chair. Help me to lift this back over. Bear blinked, moving opposite of Liam. Conference into what? Both men grunted as they heaved the desk into its upright position. General Bruce was out of line, Mark said. He had no business humiliating you like that. Viola might be unpopular, but she was right about a lot of things. The war machine has changed the bureaucracy around here for the worst, Liam explained. All of this focus on killing Caldari separatists is making us lose sight of the bigger picture. And the populace is keen on that now with Iana gone. Mark was tapping instructions into his desk's console. A woman's voice resonated through the speakers. Galnet Center. This is Colonel Beatrix. Senator Deseru, please? One moment. Let's get this out on the table right now, Liam said. We know that you've been giving some leeway to run your intel gathering ops. Now we need to see what you've accomplished with that privilege. Lieutenant Colonel Guesdenau. Man, all these French names. The gruff voice said. The senator's wrinkled face was projected over the furniture. You've lost someone important today, and I want to know the details. I mean, everything. The woman's voice interrupted. Senator Garrett is joining the conference. Good afternoon, gentlemen, Lieutenant Colonel, the younger voice said, nodding. I'm aboard the Federation cruiser Venture. Bear was dumbfounded to find himself facing two prominent members of the Gallente Senate so soon after the disaster in the conference room. Senator Deseru noted the bewildered expression on his face and chuckled. Relax, Bear, he said. We know what kind of day you've been having. Believe me, we're going to deal with that General Bruce separately. While you gather your thoughts, let me tell you what's been going on with the masses. If you didn't already know, there are a vast number of displaced Mimitar's living in Gallente space, and both of our districts have significant concentrations of naturalized citizens from Mimitar origins. When you consider that we're drafting from this same population to fight the Caldari War, you can see how failing to support the tribes directly hurts morale for us here. There are also serious economic consequences to contend with, Senator Garrett said. The RoAch system is a huge trading partner for the eastern regions of the Federation. I can't tell you how many requests we've received from people begging for information about what happened there. The Mimitar government has been offline for days, and hundreds of thousands of people have stopped their daily routines just to try and get information on their own. Shipping ports are overloaded with goods that should have left last week, and businesses are scrambling to replace inventory that never arrived, which in turn is creating regional inflationary pressures. I could go on, but suffice to say, the economic ripples effects are significant. We are winning the Caldari War, Senator Deseru said, and the populace has already become complacent with our success. The Amar are taking center stage in the media now, and people are finally starting to realize just how much of a threat they really are. We want to help the Mimitar directly, Senator Garrett said, and for now, I'll define help as everything short of sending troops. General Bruce was only half right when he implied that our resources were devoted to the war. That's definitely true with our spaceborne assets, but not our planetary equipment. We have excess supply due to over-budgeting, and we have an abundance of brand new state-of-the-art weaponry that the tribes could be using to liberate themselves. What kind of weaponry? Bear asked. Small arms, artillery, body armor, tanks, air power, you name it, Senator Deseru said. And we have plenty of advisors to lend who can show them how to use that gear to maximum effect. The senator paused and narrowed his eyes at Bear. But before any of that can happen, you need to tell us everything you know about Viola's work, beginning with what she was doing in Daemnon. Bear looked at everyone seated across from him. Politicians were always the enemy, until now. He took a deep breath, wishing he had had more smokes. Let me start by saying that I think that Viola is still alive, he said, tapping on his desktop console. And this telemetry playback will show you why. He won't fucking talk, Viola said, and he keeps repeating those goddamn prayers, she screamed directly into Foss's ear. Try to remain calm. Oh, try to remain calm, Grius said, keeping his eyes focused on the blast doors. Remember, he was trained to withstand interrogations much more severe than this. Well, why don't you give it a try? She slumped down on the ground beside the shackled Lemurian, who continued to rock back and forth, quietly chanting scripture. I have no desire to do such things to him, the Jovian replied, nor is there a compelling reason why I should. Viola wanted to claw her eyeballs out, which throbbed with each breath she took. Everything about her physical existence was tortured in the absence of painkillers. Looking away from Faust, she noticed blood stains all over the tarmac for the first time. She remembered the gore events that had started everything. "Grius," she panted, "do you know anything about the riot that happened here?" The Jovian remained motionless for a moment, as if to consider whether or not to tell her. "I know that it was the Adheduani's creation." Viola was trying to keep her voice steady despite her shivers. "How did they start it? Was it because the elders that were brought here?" "They activated a sleeper agent," Grius answered. "One with Matari genetics that was allowed to be captured and imprisoned here years ago." "Sleeper agent?" Viola looked over at Akridon and took note of the glaive collar around his neck. "They were placed throughout all the empires, and none of them are aware that they are agents." "How is that possible?" Viola exclaimed, easily irritated at everything Grius said. "Their mastery of genetic engineering unlocked the precise workings of the human brain," he answered, manipulating a datapad as he walked back towards the ramp. "They can create minds with memories and skills burned into their medial temporal lobe, and set pneumatic devices to trigger them." "Well, who are these agents? How do we find them?" "You can't," Grius answered. "They are untraceable. They are born as adults, from cloning vats with complete memories of fabricated backgrounds and accompanying identification with the empires that they are created for. These agents are bred with specific purpose programmed into their minds, and although they may take years for them to reach their stature or position they were intended for, they have yet to fail." "Invisible," Viola muttered. "All right in front of us all this time. But what about the subspace burst? How could a sleeper agent do that?" "Hyper-advanced implants," Grius said. "Many are self-assimilating, so they cannot be physically detected until the agent is activated. They are designed primarily to stimulate adrenal production, deaden pain receptors, and accelerate healing processes, among other functions. But in the past, they have also been used as transmitters." "Did the sleeper agent activated here use one of those transmitters to contact us?" "Not only us," Grius answered. "According to Viola, the elders are literally the wisest members of the 7 tribes," Bear continued. "They allegedly possess intimate knowledge of every other tribe, including their own. But their existence is officially denied by the Minotaurs. Instead, they're treated as legends, like mythical beings, all for the singular purpose of keeping their real identities secret." "But someone must know who they are," Senator Desero said, "or else they wouldn't have been sent the Valkyrs to rescue them." "They were tipped off," Bear replied, tapping on the console again, "by this." The men watching as the recorded ambient readings detected by Viola's Atron spiked across the subspace gamma and X-ray bands, then faded back to normal. "Look at the time on the mission clock. That burst originated from Demnon, and it occurred within minutes of 2 key events. 1 was the prison riot inside of the mining complex, and 2 was the reported disappearance of the Apostle Taj Rukan and 7 other high priests. Care to guess where they eventually found the bodies?" "Don't tell me Demnon," Mark said. "Correct! And here's the worst part. The Amarians think Viola is responsible for their deaths," Senator Garrett said, leaning back and rubbing his temples. "Exactly," Bear said. "Viola's ship wasn't even armed, but the burst is what lured her to Demnon, probably thinking it was a clue about the Elder's location. It seemed likely that the same burst was recorded by the Amarians and the Minotaur, but at completely different messages." "But who sent it?" Senator Garrett pleaded. "And that still doesn't tell me who else knows about these elders." "That," Bear answered, "is where Viola's theory about the Order becomes relevant." "The Order?" Senator Desarusa asked. "Who the hell are they?" "How did they take control of my ship?" Viola asked, shivering through freezing, but glistening with sweat. "And those voices in my head, when they were talking, I felt so violated by it." "We also have the technology to commandeer ships," Grius answered, placing his hands on her forehead. "Empire vessels, such as the Minotaur Rifter, for example, are not yet equipped to defend themselves from such attacks. But the Adhediwani's ability to remotely stimulate neural pathways assigned to the audio functions of the human brain, that is a science beyond our comprehension, at least for now. Beyond your comprehension? Asked Viola. You Jovians are supposed to be the goddamn technical geniuses of our age. The technology of the Adhediwani is much more advanced than our own, Viola. They possess absolute mastery of quantum physics and particle science, and the telltale signs of their presence is non-linear teleportation. What? Viola asked. Transporting matter instantaneously across space without the use of wormholes, stargates, or jump drives, Grius answered. It can be done, but not by us. I don't care what you can and can't do, Viola pleaded, becoming desperate. I just want to understand these voices, Grius. What science gives them the ability to just invade my conscious like that? He paused before answering. A mutation. Viola thought about his response for a moment, and then the Jovian's pitch black eyes staring at hers. Grius, are the Adhediwani human? Not anymore. What about the Jovians? Liam asked. The telemetry clearly showed wraiths uncloaking just before the recording stopped. If Viola has been in contact with them, she never told me about it, Bear said. But it doesn't surprise me that they have a hand in this. Do we have any diplomatic channels with the Jovians? Liam asked. Our contact with them is always tenuous, but they completely disappeared once the Caldari War started, Senator Desaru said. None of us understand why. Reach out to them, Senator Garrett said. They came to her aid, so they might be willing to answer our questions. If that's the case, Bear said, then you won't have to worry about contacting them. They'll come to us on their own time, after they get whatever they want from Viola. I've heard enough, Senator Garrett said. I'm going to Demnon right now, and I'm not leaving there until I find out what happened to her. Bad idea, Bear said. The High Health system is blockaded by Amarian warships, and they're hunting down remnants of the Valkyr fleet. You'd be flying into a firing range. Don't do it. I concur, Senator Desaru said. Right or wrong, Viola's a wanted criminal over there, and any Gallente ships in that area are likely to be considered hostile. I don't care, Senator Garrett said. The information that she has is priceless to the Federation, and we have to do everything we can to protect it. And let's face reality here, the Amarians aren't going to fire on a Gallente senator. Senator, with all due respect, I think that you're wrong, Bear said. Viola is accused of killing priests, not to mention one of their sacred apostles. There isn't an act more despicable than that in their culture, and your presence in Demnon will imply Federation involvement, if not actually endorsing the act. It's a bad idea no matter how you look at it. As opposed to General Bruce's solution of just walking away, Senator Garrett asked. I don't think so, Bear. I'm going to confront the Amarians on this and get answers. Stop trying to be a hero, Senator Desaru grumbled. Let's reach out to them through ambassadors. They're the ones who... Absolutely not, Senator Garrett retorted. We just don't have the time to go through that process. I'm already on my way to Demnon. If there's even a small chance that Viola is alive, then we have an obligation to do everything within our power to get it back. As far as I'm concerned, her survival is a matter of national security. So is yours, Senator, Bear said. And the stakes are a lot higher now with you involved. And that's it for Chapter 5 of Theodicy. If you're watching this on YouTube, there is or if you're watching the recordings of this, then there is a playlist that you can go and check out that will show all of these different episodes in order. But for the live show, we will be moving on to Chapter 6. I really want to thank everyone for watching these shows and distributing them, showing them around, and getting other people involved in the EVE lore, as it is both intensely fascinating and useful for knowing what is to come. I also want to give an extra special thanks to my following supporters: Abyssus, Arydanika the Queen, Jay Kuhn, BlackRoseNoble, Dajat Lemmont, Drake, GuldanAgeStories, Midnight Space Monkey, Not Just Fun, Seeds Aplenty, Serenolin with No Eyes, Syliana Vel'ash, Talking in Stations, Nephilim, Grendel, and Zaul Nex, as well as my Immortal tier supporters, Ebo1337 and Rid. Thank you all so much. And once again, I have been Ashtarothi, And until next time, I will see you in space.